Hi everyone, I'm David Wilson, and today we're diving into a monster flick titled The Lake. Deep in the Thai countryside, a farmer heads out for some night fishing. Nearby, his neighbors are busy catching frogs flushed out by a heavy downpour. To their surprise, they stumble upon a massive, pulsating egg. What they don't realize is that something horrific is already closing in on them. Just as they prepare to head back, the atmosphere shifts. A giant monster erupts from the darkness, roaring at the terrified farmers. By the time the farmer's wife rushes to the scene, her husband is gone. All that remains is his raincoat, floating in the dark, mysterious water. Local police are soon on the scene, with a seasoned investigator named Detective James taking charge of the case. He's stunned by the nature of the victim's wounds, injuries that could only be inflicted by a massive predator. James suspects the killer is using the local network of water channels to move unseen. Meanwhile, at a nearby farm, a young girl named May is walking along the shore with her brother Ken when she spots a giant footprint. Deep in the swamp, she finds another massive egg and decides to bring it home. Ken is thrilled, already joking about having the biggest breakfast of his life. However, their older sister Lynn is horizontal with fear and demands they get rid of it immediately, sensing the danger lurking inside. Upset, May runs away, dragging the egg back toward the lake to wait for it to hatch. She has no idea that danger is already surfacing. Another monster is fast approaching, devouring everything in its path as it heads straight for her. Meanwhile, Lynn and Ken are scouring the fields for their younger sister. When they finally reach the lake, their hearts sink. May's belongings are floating in the water. Panic-stricken, Ken dives in, desperate to find her. Lynn senses the danger a split second too late as the monster lunges from the depths, attacking Ken from behind. Ken narrowly escapes the water's edge, but the nightmare is just beginning. The beast storms onto land, tearing through the nearby farmers. It's a bloodbath. The creature is deceptively fast, tossing people aside like ragdolls and picking off anyone who can't keep up. Ken and Lynn manage to scramble into a field of tall brush, hunkering down as the monster continues its rampage nearby. While they hide, Ken is overcome by a sudden, searing pain from his injuries, and a series of terrifying psychic visions of the monster begin to flood his mind. Lynn pushes her brother to keep moving, and they eventually stumble onto a public highway. They manage to flag down a passing pickup truck and flee the carnage. But as they leave the lakeside behind, the monster is already moving on to its next target, a nearby city. Once they reach the hospital, doctors rush to treat their wounds. The police captain arrives to take their statement, but when Lynn describes the prehistoric massacre at the lake, he brushes it off. To him, the story sounds impossible. He heads back to the station, completely unaware that the predator has already infiltrated the heart of the city, turning the crowded streets into its personal hunting ground. News of the brutal attack finally reaches Detective James, who rushes to the city center only to find a scene of total devastation. With bodies lining the streets, the police department can no longer deny the monster's existence. The captain, convinced the creature is using the lake as a hideout between strikes, orders his force to split into two tactical teams to hunt it down. But before James can join the hunt, he's sidelined by a personal crisis. His rebellious daughter, Pam, has landed herself in trouble at the high school again. James is forced to pick her up, dragging her along in his vehicle as he desperately tries to catch up with the mission. Back at the hospital, Ken finally wakes from a feverish nightmare where he was locked in a struggle with the beast. His recovery brings Lynn a brief moment of hope, but it's short-lived. Ken has been rendered mute by the trauma, and his behavior is unsettling. He seems distant, lost in his own head. Lynn soon realizes the situation is even more dire. Ken is undergoing a disturbing physical transformation, and his hallucinations in the hospital bathroom reveal a terrifying new reality. He has developed a psychic link with the creature. Seeing through the monster's eyes as it continues its killing spree, Ken frantically scribbles a note to his sister, claiming he knows exactly where the beast is hiding. Lynn rushes to the city center and intercepts the police captain, insisting her brother can lead them to the predator. Skeptical but desperate, the officers follow Ken's lead into a deserted neighborhood. As they approach a quiet building, Ken freezes. He can feel the monster waiting just inside. Ken's tip pays off, allowing the team to pin down the creature's location. The officers immediately open fire and deploy explosives, rocking the building with massive blasts. Instead of taking the beast down, the fire only sends it into a blind rage and it begins swiping at the humans like they're annoying insects. Eventually, the team manages to gain the upper hand, surrounding the monster and tangling it in heavy-duty nets. But as the officer's rain blows down on the creature, Ken begins to scream in agony. Lynn watches in horror as fresh wounds appear on her brother's body, mirroring the injuries inflicted on the beast. Realizing their lives are physically linked, she rushes toward the captain, begging the officers to stop their assault before they kill her brother. Seeing the inexplicable injuries on Ken, the captain orders his men to stand down and secures the monster in a transport vehicle. However, an angry mob of villagers quickly surrounds them, demanding the creature's head and putting Ken's life in the crosshairs. On the other side of the lake, Detective James and his team discover another massive egg on the shoreline. Fresh, gargantuan footprints nearby suggest the parent is lurking close by. Amidst the tension, one of the officers finds a survivor, May, Ken's missing younger sister. James is baffled that she managed to survive so long alone with the egg. He leaves her with the team and heads back to his car to continue lecturing his daughter, Pam. His scolding is cut short by the sound of frantic gunfire. James sprints back to his colleagues, only to find the area deserted and the police cruisers painted in blood. Emerging from the depths of the lake is a monster the size of a skyscraper, and it's just getting started. James manages to find the sole survivor, an officer hiding in the trunk of a cruiser. Before they can even exchange words, a massive tail sweeps through the grass, and the skyscraper-sized monster looms over them. James dives for cover, but his blood runs cold when he remembers Pam is still trapped in his car. He scrambles for his radio, desperately shouting for her to hide. The situation turns critical as the egg inside the car begins to vibrate. The monster, guided by the scent of its offspring, closes in on the vehicle. When the creature's massive eye appears at the window, Pam lets out a blood-curdling scream. Seeing its stolen egg, the monster begins to relentlessly batter the car, trying to tear its way inside. James, desperate to save his daughter, breaks cover and opens fire, unloading his weapon into the beast. It's like throwing pebbles at a tank. The monster lashes out with its tail, sending James flying toward the water's edge. Seeing an opening, the other officer drags a heavy oxygen tank toward the fray while the monster is distracted with the car. The beast finally smashes through the windows, its jagged teeth inches from the terrified passengers. Just before it can strike, the officer heaves the oxygen tank at the creature and shoots it. A massive fireball engulfs the monster, but as the smoke clears, the officer is horrified to see the beast standing completely unfazed. With a deafening roar, the monster turns back to the wreck, rips the door off its hinges, and delicately retrieves its egg with its massive jaws. Seizing the moment, Pam bolts from the car, desperate to put distance between herself and the predator. But as she reaches open ground, she stops dead in her tracks. The monster isn't leaving. It's been waiting for her. The creature pins Pam to the ground with its massive claws, its roar vibrating through her entire body. Seeing his daughter seconds from death, James lunges from the water and fires a desperate shot at a nearby oxygen tank. The resulting blast rocks the monster, forcing it to release Pam, but the beast immediately turns its fury on James. It looms over him, a wall of scales and teeth, but just as it prepares to strike, the agonized wail of the captured monster echoes from the city. The giant creature freezes, spares the detective, and charges toward the urban center. James rushes to Pam's side, scooping her up and racing toward the city. But the damage is done. Before they can reach the hospital, James realizes his daughter is losing too much blood. He can only watch helplessly as she dies in his arms, leaving him shattered in the middle of a war zone. Meanwhile, in the town square, the police captain is still struggling to hold back the bloodthirsty mob. He knows that if they kill the captured creature, Ken dies with it. But the mob's fury is suddenly replaced by pure, cold terror as a shadow the size of a skyscraper falls over the streets. The parent monster has arrived. Panic erupts as the building-sized beast tears through the city, focused entirely on the screams of its kin. It corners a bus full of terrified civilians, its massive jaws hovering inches from the glass. But instead of a massacre, something strange happens. The monster turns away. It's not hunting for food, it's on a rescue mission. A couple inside the bus realizes the truth and bolts toward the police line, desperate to convince the captain that the carnage will only end if the monsters are reunited. The police captain finally realizes the gravity of their mistake. Seeing the parent monster closing in, he orders his men to abandon the transport vehicle immediately. Panic grips the city as civilians scramble onto buses, desperate to evacuate. Among the chaos, Ken makes a heartbreaking realization. His shifting physical state and infectious wounds mean he can no longer live among humans. He can never go home. As Ken bolts toward the monster's transport truck, Lynn chases after him, screaming for him to stop. He pauses only long enough to pull her into one last silent embrace before turning his back on her forever. He climbs into the driver's seat of the truck, carrying the captive creature. As the imprisoned monster wails, drawing the attention of its massive parent, Ken floors the accelerator. He leads the skyscraper-sized beast on a high-stakes chase, luring it away from the crowded streets and out toward the wilderness. His sacrifice pays off. The monster follows its kin, and the city is spared further destruction. In the aftermath, the surviving civilians begin to emerge from their hiding spots. Lynn finally spots May in the crowd, and the sisters collapse into a tearful reunion. But the peace is fragile. Watching from the shadows, Detective James is consumed by a cold, vengeful grief over the death of his daughter. He stares at the young girl, convinced she and her family are the key to the monster's origin. Sensing the danger of the truth, the police captain pulls James aside, delivering a stern warning: the investigation is over. He wants the existence of the lake monsters buried forever, but for those who survived, the nightmare is far from finished. Driven by a grief that refuses to heal, James resigns from the police force. He spends the following years obsessed with a singular goal: finding the creature that took his daughter. But the monsters, along with Lynn's brother, seem to have vanished into thin air, leaving no trace of their existence. 5 years pass. James is now a weathered, gray-haired shadow of his former self, fueled only by his vendetta. Meanwhile, May has grown into a teenager, and she still spends her days by the water's edge. James has been tailing her for years, and one afternoon, he follows her to a secluded spot at the lake. He watches from the brush, stunned, as a monster emerges from the depths. It doesn't attack May. Instead, it devours a sheep she brought for it. To James's horror, the girl and the beast share a bond, embracing like old friends while he watches from the shadows. That night, James corners May at her home, his voice trembling with rage as he blames her for his daughter's death. But before he can finish, a monster lunges from the dark, pinning him down. James fights back, with the desperation of a man who has nothing left to lose. He manages to sear the creature's eyes and detonates a series of explosives, sending the beast crashing to the ground. With the wounded monster at his mercy and his finger on the trigger, James looks up. He sees the crushing sadness in May's eyes, and in the distance, the skyscraper-sized parent monster rises silently from the lake. In that moment, the weight of 5 years of hatred finally breaks. He realizes that more blood won't bring his daughter back. It will only create more orphans. James lowers his weapon and sinks into the darkness, the fire of revenge finally extinguished. Instead of finishing his hunt, he chooses to seek the truth. Guided by May, the former detective turns his back on the city and begins a journey into the rugged mountains, ready to discover the secrets of the world he once tried to destroy. What James doesn't realize is that May has already begun to show the same symptoms as Ken. Her body is starting to transform from within, forging a permanent bond with the creatures. Meanwhile, James pushes deeper into the heart of the mountains. Venturing into a network of damp, jagged caves, he freezes when he discovers a shred of blood-stained clothing. The same fabric worn by Lynn's brother 5 years ago. Following a faint glow deeper into the cavern, he stumbles upon a hidden ancient temple. It's clear that people have been here recently, still making offerings to a deity that dwells in the dark. As James examines the walls, he finds them covered in intricate murals depicting the lake monsters. In these ancient scenes, humans didn't hunt the creatures. They worshipped them as gods. But before James can process the weight of this discovery, a massive shadow falls over him. He turns to find the giant monster looming in the cave, waiting for him. So, what do you guys think about the lake? Does the connection between the humans and the monsters make them less like villains and more like guardians? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this breakdown, hit that like button and subscribe for more movie recaps. I'll see you guys in the next one.